Here's how I made the Michael's food toy accessories, including Bignald with his French fry cross, Hernbungler, the burger stand, Birdo, breakfast secret with hash brown, and Grimy Mister, the dairy prophet, who can predict whether the ice cream machine is down. Each has its own magnetic food accessory. I started with that big deformed Tweety bird from Sesame Seed, who is missing her beak for some reason. I printed out this totally normal picture of Ronald McDonald to use as a reference, and then started sculpting features. The two parts of this clay have to get intimate before anything will happen. Ronald wears a baggy yellow jumpsuit with a zipper down the front and multiple pockets, so I had to cut those features out of clay and then attach them to the bird bod. Oh yeah, and a collar for that semi-formal clown look, and foot shoes. I also sculpted all of the food accessories, like this mini Mac. When the clay was dry, I noticed it was bumpy because of all the feathers, so I sanded it down to make it smooth. Then I painted him like Ronald, starting with pasty white, like a pale Caucasian putting on sunscreen at the beach. Then I added the blood red hair and accents, which are endemic to most clown populations, including the nose. The cursed scary eye makeup rounded out this beloved children's character. I wanted to add the classic M for Michael's restaurant to the pockets, so I used water slide decals. I also painted the Mini Mike sandwich and all of the other food accessories and characters. Here's Elmo becoming the early bird, Cookie Monster becoming Grimace, and Ernie becoming the Hernbungler. It really is an all-star cast from Michael's and Sesame Seed. I used this sealer to give them that glistening, sweaty, just got back from the gym look. Then it was time to make packages for each of the figures. I wasn't totally sure how I wanted to make the plastic blister bubbles, but I figured you can't go wrong with a mummy. I used bubble wrap to prepare him for embalming and paper mache to finish mummification. UV resin provided a nice hard sarcophagus. Can you imagine what explorers will say when they discover his remains? Truly fascinating. Must have been the ruler of an insane asylum. He's now on display in a British museum, so I filled his sarcophagus with plaster and put on my proctology glove. Don't worry, this will all be over in a second. We just need to smooth out some lumps. After sanding down the first Bondo layer, there were still some voids and overhangs that would prevent proper thermoforming, so I had to do several extra rounds of plaster, Bondo, and sanding for each of the figures. This step took the longest by far. With all of the bucks finally done, I was able to use my vacuform machine to create the blister bubbles. It took me several tries to figure out how much stretch I needed to get a good pull. Next, I designed the backer cards for the packages, which are reminiscent of Sesame Street. I also put instructions for how to use each figure on the backs. I printed out the designs on full sheet label paper, partly because it's a lot less messy than glue, and partly because it's really satisfying to peel. It can be tricky to precisely line up the designs on the front and the back. So what I do is put the front on first and then cut it just a little bit wider than the edge of the design. Next, I cut out the back that exact same size so I can line it up perfectly on the other side. And finally, I trim off the excess. The only thing left is to round off the corners and punch a hanger hole. The British Museum where Bignald was on display sent him back to me, along with a note saying he was escaping from his display at night and muttering ketchupy incantations. That's why I'm using this super sticky double-sided tape to make sure he can't escape from his final resting place. That should do it. I think that'll hold no matter how cursed he might be. Just to be safe though, I should probably keep all of these figures under lock and key at home, instead of, for example, leaving them out at a thrift store for some unsuspecting shopper to find.